Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a video covering my impressions for competitive gaming and where I would place the Padsmith IEM on the wallhack certified tier list. I've done hours and hours and hours of gaming on these in Apex, in Call of Duty, as well as Valorant, and I did use these primarily for Marvel Rivals as I was hitting Grandmaster. Now, the Padsmith IEM is coming in at $109. It does have a beautiful purple faceplate that is unique to each unit. And it does have a see-through transparent kind of shadowy purple shell here where you can see the dynamic driver as well as the micro planner that is within each side on each unit. The IEM is on the smaller side. It has a great ergonomic resin shell and it is very comfortable. I was able to use this for 8 to 10 hours grinding, no issues at all. And the IEM actually does have a beautiful box. And in terms of the unboxing experience, it's actually quite similar to Thea Audio with a carrying case and the IEMs coiled around with the cable placed in the box. So a nice first IEM in terms of what you get, a nice first IEM in terms of that unboxing experience. And I'll show you guys the default cable here on the top right of the screen so you can see what the 2-pin 3.5 cable looks like out of the box. Now, the Padsmith IEM for music in comparison to something, I think the biggest competitor for the Padsmith IEM is going to be the EM6L. We tested these, a lot of you already have it, and it has been acclaimed as being quite good for competitive gaming, as well as a great music listening experience. The EM6L being one dynamic driver, 4 balanced armatures coming in at $110. Again, the Padsmith IEM being a dynamic driver and micro planner. The Padsmith IEM has a nicer and more ergonomic fit. The EM6L does come off a little bit larger with not quite as good ergonomics. Now, both of these IEMs are actually great, I think, at their respective price points for music. In comparison, you guys can see the graph. The EM6L does have greater treble extension, and for a lot of, well, mostly all music tracks, the soundstage is going to feel wider, deeper, and longer in terms of its over your head and under your head type feel. The Padsmith IEM feels more intimate. The sub bass does come off quite a bit, well, and bass in general comes off with a lot more impact and substance. The bass, however, on the Padsmith IEM does have a little bit of bloat to it and reverb in comparison to something like the EM6L. But again, if you want more substance in the bass, you can look at the Padsmith IEM. I think mids are handled well on both of these sets. However, male and female vocals do come off a bit more natural on the EM6L, as well as timbre for most things. And again, there's more treble extension, there's more air within the space, more air within the tracks, and you pick up more micro detail as a result on the EM6L in comparison to the Padsmith IEMs. I think also because of the 4 balanced armatures, things might feel faster in attack and decay on the EM6L in comparison to the Padsmith IEM, which the attack and decay I would not classify as fast in the bass region on the Padsmith IEM. Now, that does impact things moving into competitive gaming. I did most of my testing in Valorant, Apex, Marvel Rivals, as well as Call of Duty. Now, the Padsmith IEM for Call of Duty in comparison to the EM6L actually wins. Call of Duty, I find, benefits from a more intimate sound experience, and the Padsmith delivers in that regard. The imaging in Call of Duty is actually there, and I didn't find that the separation and the layering, although a little bit worse on the Padsmith IEM, I didn't find it to be an issue for Call of Duty in comparison, whereas the wider, deeper, longer soundstage on the EM6L just made a lot of the impact in the space, footsteps, slides, doors knocking in, felt a little bit more far away from me with less impact and less of that feeling of urgency. Now, in Call of Duty with verticality, when people are running above you, there's a different audio cue. The footsteps sound different, so the verticality wasn't really quite an issue. Now, the Padsmith IEM performing great in Call of Duty. I think it is recommendable at $110, but you will still get some separation and layering issues with a lot of gunfire, with grenades going off, with airstrikes, mortar strikes, etc. But it actually handled well, and I think at this price point, it actually is quite nice for Call of Duty. And for That wallhack certification process, I would probably place them at a B-, where I would probably put the EM6L closer for Call of Duty in particular to a B- to a C+. And for that B- in COD, I would say bordering a B, actually quite good for COD. Moving into Apex Legends is where things fall down for the Padsmith IEM a little bit more than other titles. In Apex Legends, there's just a lot going on. So landing in World's Edge, for instance, if there are multiple people landing streamer building, doors opening as grenades are going off, slides are happening, gunfire's happening, abilities are going on, it just becomes too muddied in the sense of being able to pick up things. It's more of that deer in the headlights, and you lose out on too much detail and too much space to be able to have things actually traveling in your listening experience to pick them up without things feeling muddied. The bass does come off a little bit with a uproar in comparison to something like the EM6L, and the space being more intimate, like when grenades are going off and some of those audio cues are happening, it's just hard to keep track of things that are happening around you. The Padsmith IEM I also found for verticality. There are rare artifacts that happen in Apex Legends where there are people above you or people below you, and at times they can feel as though those audio cues are on the same level as you. There were times where I was at height and things were going on, and I thought they were at the same level as me. And again, those artifacts were a little more on the rare side, but they did happen with a frequency that I have to bring them up. In terms of other things, the gunfire is on the louder side, but I wouldn't find the gunfire to be anything that causes me concern with feeling like peaky or shouty or just off-putting. And I do find that again, the most impact really are grenades, abilities, the storm behind me. When you're popping a shield cell, it comes out with a great extent and can muddy things that are happening around you. So there were times where I would be behind an object, popping and trying to micromanage my health, popping a shield battery, and that noise of the vroom kind of led me to being harder to keep track of two people in a building at the same time, whereas the wider, deeper, longer soundstage on the EM6L, I still had those things coming through, but I didn't have issues of that separation, that layering. So the EM6L just handled Apex Legends better than the Padsmith IEM. And I would actually place the EM6L, I think I have it on my list right now, as a B- bordering a B. The Apex Legends experience I would have at a B on the EM6L, whereas the Padsmith IEM I would have closer to a C+ for Apex Legends. It's not just about imaging. The imaging is here, again, separate and apart from that verticality at times. But the imaging is here. The depth is good for the most part, like hearing things at a distance and knowing how far and what building people are in. I got that with the Padsmith IEM, but it's like as you get closer, it is when things break down. It's just too hard to keep track of things. You get that deer in the headlights type feeling in Apex Legends. Moving to Valorant, the Padsmith IEM in comparison to the EM6L. Again, Padsmith IEM feeling more intimate. So footsteps are louder, gunfire is louder, abilities going off within the space are louder. You might initially feel as though you're picking up those things with a greater extent than something like the EM6L. That's because, again, of that wider, longer, deeper soundstage on the EM6L. But that doesn't lead to a better gaming experience if other things take notches down. And I think they do. The separation, again, the layering, when there's gunfire going off, if you have an ability flying in the air like a flashbang, or you're getting flashed, those things are just so loud. And with that bloat and reverb, it causes issues with separation, layering, and it's hard to pick up on things. I also did find for Valorant some artifacting as well. Whereas when louder footsteps, so like when the footsteps really start like pounding and getting closer to you, there's a lot of times that those audio cues just sounded and felt closer than they actually were. And that was throwing off my crosshair placement to an extent. Now, again, the imaging is there. The depth perception is there. Just, again, those issues at times in Valorant that will affect the experience. And I do think that I would probably put the EM6L again at a B, bordering a B-, and the Padsmith IEM at a B-, bordering a C+ for Valorant. Now, there's one thing I want to be clear about, and that is anything that makes the list is good for gaming. There's just different gradations, and I kind of don't like this A-, A, S, B that we have right now in the wallhack certified tier list. I might change things to like a color grading, whereas like green would be the best, and then you have like those different shades as you get further down, because again, anything making the list is theoretically good for gaming. There's just different gradations. So I don't want people to think like, a C+ is absolutely horrible. It's not. But obviously when you're comparing it to something in the list that is higher, there's just some benefits there that you will be getting for competitive gaming purposes. Again, I used these in Marvel Rivals while grinding to Grandmaster. The soundtrack, the abilities, the effects all sounded great. The IEM market is so competitive. There's just so much there. And for a mousepad company to dive into IEMs, it had to be rather traumatic. And they're probably waiting for all of the feedback. But I do think Padsmith has done a great job here on their first IEM. Again, more of the things that we look for competitive gaming. You guys might have different experiences and how you feel about that price bracket for a music listening experience. But of course, my A and B testing was only with the Simgot EM6L. I hope this one helped, guys. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel. See you guys in the next review. Peace.